You are making the world a better place by listening to the Joy of Living podcast. This is your guide to achieving a more purposeful, powerful, and positive life. Join Barry Shore in unlocking the best version of you and becoming happier, healthier, and wealthier. And now, here's your ambassador of joy, Barry Shore.
Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Remember, you're good-looking, so always looking for and finding the good. That's the definition of a good-looking person. And you are especially good-looking today because you tuned in consciously and conscientiously to listen to the Joy of Living podcast with your humble host, Barry Shore. You tuned in to this show for one reason only. It's actually the best reason in the whole wide world, because you care the most in the entire world about you. And that's great, because when you become the best you make the world a better place. You build more bridges of harmony, create more joy, happiness, peace, and love in the world. And that's really the purpose of the Joy of Living podcast, to enable you to have the tools to become the best possible you. And we do this by focusing on the three fundamentals of life, because when you use these three fundamentals, you will become happier, healthier, and wealthier. Who doesn't want that? So the three fundamentals of life are, number one, your life has purpose. And when you lead a purpose-driven life, number two happens. Now, in this case, a good number two, you go MAD. Now, MAD is an absolutely wonderful acronym that stands for make a difference. You lead a purpose-driven life, you make a difference in the world. And the third fundamental is to uncover the power and the secrets of everyday words and terms. And the simple example, right now, this particular podcast has been carried over the internet around the world. And you ask anybody, what does WWW stand for? Invariably, they'll tell you it has to do with the internet. Factually speaking, they're correct. Now, in our world, the world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, WWW stands for what a wonderful world. And what is a word, of course, WHETA. And of course, whenever you think of those words, you hear that the opening bars of that song that went viral from Louis Armstrong, Satchmo, thank you, wonderful Satchmo, through that song of What a Wonderful World has touched not just tens of millions or hundreds of millions, but billions of people around the planet. You hear the opening bars, what do you do right away? You can't help it. You smile. Now, SMILE is one of the most important acronyms you can ever internalize, utilize, and leverage in your life, because SMILE stands for seeing miracles in life every day. That's right, seeing miracles in life every day. I got to tell you, thankfully, we're back speaking to people. And I just did a show recently. We had 1,176 people in the audience, and a lot of hugging, a lot of high energy. And I'm telling the story about Barry Shore and talking about seeing miracles in life every day. And some people are raising their hands and say, hey, Barry Shore, I've been out for hours already. I haven't seen any miracles. And I asked them, are you here? Can you hear? Can you stand still? I can't do that. Can you walk? I can barely do that. Do you have water to drink? Do you have food to eat? Do you have a place to sleep? Do you have family? Do you have friends? Every single one of those is a miracle. And what's the proof? Simplest proof in the world. 1 million people didn't get out of bed this morning. You know why? They died. By definition, if you're watching or listening, you didn't. You have an obligation now to live life to the full. So let me tell you a quick story. It's about me. Imagine, if you can, standing up in the morning, hearty and healthy, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, and that night being in the hospital totally, completely paralyzed from the neck down. It's called a quadriplegic. And it was not from an automobile accident, not a spinal injury. It was a rare disease that took over my body and rendered me completely, totally paralyzed. Nothing moved my body. I can only communicate by blinking my eyes. 144 days in the hospital, 2 years in a hospital bed in my own home I couldn't turn over by myself. I was 4 years in a wheelchair. I had braces on both my legs, my hips, my ankles. That was progress. Thank God today I'm able to be vertical and ambulatory with the help of a 7-foot walking wand. So I'm a triped, not a biped. I can't walk up a stair by myself. I can't walk up a curb by myself. I have help 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. But you hear my voice. Positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant. All because of this one word. Smile. But I got to tell you a quick story. My 8-year-old niece comes over to me a few weeks ago and says, Uncle Barry, can we spell smile S-M-I-E-L? I thought about it. Smile sounds the same. Why not? I asked her how come. She says, because that would stand for seeing miracles in everyday life. Out of the mouth of an 8-year-old. But what was she doing? She was creating the kind of world she wants to live in. Now, CREATE is a fabulous acronym that stands for causing rethinking, enabling all to excel. Yes, rethinking is what I call a shift in perspective. Now, I've been working with people for more than 42 years, and I can tell you 97.2% of all the people I ever work with initially drop the F in shift, and the other stuff happens. So you got to be careful with your F's. And it's all based on 6 words. When you can internalize, utilize, and leverage these 6 words, you can lead a more beneficial, wonderful, loving, bountiful life. And these 6 words are choice, not chance, determines your destiny. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. How you choose to respond in any given situation will really determine the pathway and the trajectory of your life. Now, before we bring on our amazing guest, wonderful Rory from Down Under, those of you in the know what that means. Before we bring on Rory and talk about deep personal relationships and what the research that he's found over 37 years will do for you, I just want to warn everybody in advance, the people that are new to listening to us, and thank you. I'm deeply honored that you bring 25,000 new people every single show. So we'll be up to 500,000 in the next, God willing, in 6 months. And I'm just going to urge everybody, all you have to do today is just go to my website, www.whatawonderfulworld.barryshore.com, and everything you want to know about Rory and the show is there. You don't have to write anything down. Just lean in and let the information flow through you, around you, so you can be transformed, because that's really what you want. You want transformation, not just information or inspiration. So I just want to warn everybody that I do use a lot of 4-letter words. I even use the 4-letter FU word, and I do it because of the shock value, and it's fun. Now, the 4-letter words that we use, of course, because we live in the world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, are love, life, hope, free, gift, grow, play, pray, swim. And the 4-letter FU word is fun. Fun, yes, F-U, capital N, capital N. Now, some people right away in the audience say, hey, Barry Shore, fun's only spelled with 3 letters. Well, not in our world. The world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant. Fun is spelled F-U, capital N, capital N. So after the show, you see your family and friends. I want you to point your finger and say, F-U, everybody, with a twinkle in your eye. And just remember right away, add capital N, capital N. So where'd you get that? I said, I listened to Barry Shore and the joy of living. He wants to teach the world to F-U. Capital N, capital N. Then you have something say, what is that all about? And you can discuss what we're going to talk about today. And before we bring on Rory, I just want to urge you to do the following. I want you to use the 2 most powerful words in English language 3 times a day from now and for the rest of your life, consciously and conscientiously, 3 times a day. And they are, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks stands for to harmonize and nurture kindness. To harmonize and nurture kindness. Imagine you walk into your coffee shop, order your fancy latte, you sit down, somebody brings it to you, say, thank you. You walk in the coffee shop, order a fancy latte, you sit down, nobody brings it to you, and you go to the counter and say, I'm sorry, we forgot, we're busy. You sit down, a couple of minutes go by, somebody brings it, you say, thank you. You're walking out the coffee shop, it's raining out, somebody holds the door open for you. You say, thank you. You're walking out the coffee shop, it's raining out, somebody slams the door on you. You say, thank you. You're in traffic. You're late for an appointment. Somebody cuts you off. You say, thank you. You get up in the middle of the night and you stub your toe and it hurts. You say, thank you. To harmonize and nurture kindness. KIND is a fabulous acronym that stands for keep inspiring noble deeds. I can't think of anybody I'd like to share with you right now that inspires noble deeds more than wonderful Rory Kilmartin. Rory, please say hello to 358,927 people around the world.
Hello, everybody around the world. If you're listening to this, I'm absolutely delighted to meet you. Barry, thank you for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be here, and I can't wait to have this deep dive conversation with you.
Is that not a wonderful fellow? And by the way, think about this, everybody. The genius of living in today's world, that I am in the Northern Hemisphere, Rory's in the Southern Hemisphere, and we just passed the summer solstice here in the Northern Hemisphere, the longest days, and now you're moving into wintertime, the shortest days. So we're in opposite ends of the pole and different things, but we're all united by our common humanity. And that's really what we want to talk about today, because Rory is the relationship expert. He's been researching and working with people and practicing the art and the science of relationships for more than 3 decades. So I just want to just jump right in and ask you the question that you and I discussed prior. And you talk about the games of life. Okay, we all know that there's such a thing called the games of. What are the 3 primary games, in your opinion? And then we'll just unpack one at a time and have a lot of fun together. So what are they, and what do we do about them?
Fabulous. So yeah, over my 37 years of looking for the fundamental information that makes sense of human relationships, I've discovered 1 or 2 other things. And one of the great inquiries was, for me, for a long time, was what is the purpose of relationship? When you enter someone's life, what's the opportunity? What's the invitation? And if we are sort of congruent or coherent with life in its fullness, what is the opportunity and invitation for entering someone's life? Along that way, I inquired into games, and what I discovered is fairly obvious, and I'm certainly not the first person to discover it, but the 3 primary games are the health game, the money game, and the relationship game. And the reason for that is because you can't opt out of those 3 games. By default, you are alive, you have a biological vessel that's carrying you around, and therefore the health game is constantly in reality. You can't avoid it. There's a word for that, and it's called removing yourself from being alive. The money game, you can't opt out of. You might think you can. Maybe you want to become a hermit. It's not a very widely taken up vocation. Or maybe you want to join a monastery or something similar. But the issue is, if you want to leave, you still have to take a bus. So whether you're in a monastic environment or not, the money game still exists. It still exists in your life, in your being. And the third one is the relationship game. As I just touched on, even hermits have to have a relationship with themselves, with the seasons, with their home, with their environment, with whatever animals are around. And of course, the majority of us are not hermits. So we must engage in relationships. We are a communal species, and therefore we cannot opt out of that. So what are some of the games that we can opt out of? Well, you can play the property investment game. That's optional. Even the parenting game is optional. You can choose not to have children. And some people choose not to stay in their children's lives, which is a separate conversation, but it's still optional. And there are many, many, many games that are optional. But these 3 are not. By default of being alive, you are engaged in them. So that's the 3
I love this idea of the, first of all, biological vessel. Very nice. But I want to make mention the opening statement that you had. I found it to be very engaging and intriguing. And that is dealing with other humans. What is the opportunity? What is the invitation? Let's take the sort of, in quotations, the natural attraction male to female. Of course, there are others, but let's just take the natural attraction male to female that is sparked either by eye contact, a touch of a finger, who knows what, but that there's something that is stimulating the desire to learn more about the other being. Mm-hmm. And leave aside the lust factor, which obviously will enter into the situation at some point, but the opportunity and the invitation say, I'm willing to allow you to come into my life to a certain point. So let's talk about the stages in the opportunity. When 2 people meet, whether they're doing it as friends or as potential lovers, one never knows, but as potential lovers, more than the opposite sex opportunity is usually dominated by that. But there seems to be, to me, living on this earth for 74 years, stages that happens. In other words, the opportunity first is, well, let's have a cup of coffee, chat.
Well, I'm going to answer your question in a slightly different way. So, fortunately, it's irrelevant whether it's male, female, or not. All relationships fall under this same answer, which is helpful, including your relationship with your children, by the way. So, all relationships, if you're a boss and you employ somebody, this still stands true. So, I'm going to answer your question by expanding on the games of life for a moment. So we know that we've got these three primary games that we can think of in the center. And then there are a number of games that follow out of that. There's a number of different health games you can play. There's a number of different financial games, of course, you can play. There are games based around art and beauty, games around religion, politics. There's different games. But all of these games, every single game you can think of, all exists in sort of the solar system, if you will. If all the games are planets and all the sub-games are moons, they all exist in a solar system. And what is that solar system? Well, for me, it's the game of life itself. So what is the game of life itself that all the other games sit inside of? That's a great question.
Yes.
My research, my study.
What is the answer?
Well, the answer is the prime directive of life itself, which is growth and maturation. That's it. We could say that if our experience is created by AI, which some people posit, I don't think so, but I could be wrong. But if you look at the sort of the design code, right? If there is a code, well, what appears to be the consistent code? We must keep growing. How do you define growing? Well, one great definition is the ongoing creation of new beliefs and then later reviewing those beliefs and then upgrading those beliefs until they become inappropriate further. And then you review them, then you upgrade them again. And this cycle goes on all the way through your life until your final breath. I'll give you a really simple example. Barry, do you have the same beliefs, opinions, and assumptions about marriage that you had when you were 24?
Well, I'm happy to say no, because I've learned.
But see, here's the thing. If I was looking for some advice and I found out that somebody age 74 still had the same beliefs, opinions, decisions, and assumptions about marriage and family that they had when they were 24, I couldn't sit down with them. Nobody should. Because we are supposed to continue to evolve our understanding. And it seems that the medium by which we grow the most, unfortunately, is challenge and breakdown and struggle and disappointment. That's when our flawed beliefs, decisions, and assumptions come into our awareness. I'll give you a quick example, and I'm still answering your question. In my childhood, all the men were safe. The men were solid. I felt safe and loved, reassured by them. At school, fortunately, there wasn't much bullying in my schools. We all played sport together. We played rugby together. The men of the same age as me, they were my friends. The decision I made as a child was men are safe. And the decision I made as a child was that women were not, because I didn't experience that from women. Later in life, I was in my third business project commitment with a man that went south. And I then realized I have a flawed belief. All men are safe is a flawed belief. So then this flawed belief becomes into my awareness to be reviewed and upgraded. And then I realized, just like women, some men are trusting and safe and benevolent, and some men are not. Some women are trusting, safe and benevolent and well-meaning. Some women are not. That's more accurate. And from that realization, I now live in a more grown up and more accurate mindset. I'm now able to put in place more protection and boundaries and clarifications and assessments to make sure that I engage in projects with the right kind of person. But the naive Rory, age 30, did not know that, because I was running a flawed belief, decision, and assumption. So the way the game of life appears to work is that your flawed beliefs, decisions, and assumptions are brought to your awareness at the right time for you to grow and continue growing and evolving. It seems that there is an invisible agenda called maturation. The methodology by which you play the game of maturation is that through mostly challenges and breakdowns, sometimes successes, and sometimes the realization that you're off track. You're either on track or off track. But I think 85+% is when your life doesn't work, when life is a struggle. And the way I see it is a little bit like a sort of a computer game. And what's being laid before you is gold coins, like a Super Mario game, right? So you have a storm, you have a breakdown, you fall out, you have a terrible weekend with your spouse again, and you get told you're not listening, even though you're listening to every word they're bloody saying. You're not listening. Now it's the third weekend in a row. There's some awareness in here. There's some gold in here. The gold is awareness. So you could summarize the game of life itself as we're gathering awareness and improving the clarity of our understanding until our final breath.
Let me put you on pause for a moment. We're going to take the first of two breaks. And I'm going to urge everybody to stay in your seats, because Rory is, if nothing else, engaging and enchanting, isn't he? And we're going to take a quick break. I urge you to visit our sponsors and use what they have, because we don't have anybody on the show that isn't wonderful and beneficial to you. We'll be right back after this brief message. Imagine the kind of place you would want to shop for your favorite fur baby pet. honestpets.co. Well, you found it. honestpets.co, not .com, .co. This is your go-to spot for the best, the cleanest pet treats that exist anywhere on the planet. All of the brands go through a rigorous review to make sure they meet the high standards of cleanliness, health benefits, and naturalness. This site was started by a husband and wife team, and it's veteran-owned, and that care about pets, especially dogs and cats, and coming soon, bird treats. These are very nice young people who really care about making a difference, because a portion of proceeds go to support veteran organizations with a focus on service dogs. This is the place where you want to go. You want to tell your friends this has the finest, yummiest, freshest, all-natural treats and stuff for your fur baby. So go there, honestpets.co. honestpets.co. Do it now. Opportunity. What an opportunity. I'm going to use 2 4-letter words right now. Free gift. Free gift. Yes, you can have a copy of my best-selling book, The Joy of Living, How to Slay Stress and Be Happy, the ebook version, for absolutely free. All you have to do is send an email to me, Barry, Barry, at barryshore.com, and in the heading, the subject line, just write free gift. It's as easy as that. This is a life-changing, life-enhancing opportunity. Barry at barryshore.com. You'll be glad you did. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Free gift. Do it now. Take the action. Make it happen right now. Best wishes. Bye. Good day. Wonderful, bountiful, beloved immortal beings, and good-looking people. Remember, you're good-looking because you're always looking for and finding the good. We have good in abundance. Our cup runneth over with good. His name is Rory, and he's from Australia with a British accent, and he's talking about the games of life. And the ability, as I wrote down for myself here, is the game of the gaining an awareness of maturation. And that's really what you've been talking about, right? The ability to grow in awareness. I want to make mention that there's a very famous story about somebody observing or learning about the growth of a lobster. I don't know if you know what a lobster is from where you come from, but okay. In the United States, we have lobsters. And funny thing about a lobster, when it's smaller, well, it's smaller. How does a lobster grow if it's encased in this hard shell? Well, it gets to a point where the inside of the lobster can't grow anymore, and it's hurting. It goes under a rock. You ready for this? Bangs against the rock, cracks open the shell. The shell goes away, and now in the safety of under the rock, the lobster can grow, and as it's growing, grows a new shell. And it does this several times in the course of his life, because people don't eat little lobsters, they eat big lobsters, they get juicy and such. So I think we're talking about something similar in the human condition, is that, like you said, oftentimes it comes by challenge, and oftentimes an unpleasant challenge. Let's be blunt. You're not listening.
Yeah.
Things are breaking down.
Yeah.
And in distinction to, well, honey, what can we do together to grow? What can I do for you that's better for you? Not me. What can I do that's better for you? And vice versa. So let's continue in your show and showing up the pathway.
So what's interesting about the lobster analogy is that it requires the lobster to become vulnerable, to then drink in more liquid to expand before that new layer becomes solidified. So growth requires moments of vulnerability. It's no good if you're a know-it-all. It's no good if you cannot take any feedback. It's no good if you can't look in the mirror and introspect and say, how am I contributing to this breakdown? These are some of the qualities. So back to your question. When you enter someone's life, what is the true opportunity? What is the true invitation? Well, for a long time, relationships have been based around essentially a commercial or political or status interaction, essentially a deal. And there's nothing wrong with that, essentially. At least in the external world of money and power and social standing and stuff like that. But what is the internal world agenda? Well, we know what that is. It is maturation. It is the gathering of awareness and the seeing more clearly as we grow older. Essentially, our entire life is a pathway to eldership if we play the game consciously. So here's what I observed. If you play the health game, the relationship game, and the money game consciously, you evolve and you become more competent. If you don't play, for example, the money game consciously, it plays you. So then if you look at the game of life itself, if you don't relate to your life as a growth-centric experience and that the agenda is the gathering of awareness, what happens is the game of life plays you. And my sort of phrase is, I call it the escalating feedback principle. There are 7 principles in the game of life that I've outlined. One of them, my least favorite and my most favorite, is the escalating feedback principle. And the escalating feedback principle essentially says, if you don't pay attention the first time, you're going to get that lesson again, only just a little bit more uncomfortable. So in relationships, it's like the first time you're not really listening, or you just give advice when someone's sharing their emotions, it's an hour of frostiness and then you reconnect. Next time it might be dinner. The next time it might be a whole evening. The next time it might be a whole weekend. You continue to not understand when someone expresses their emotions, they just want to be heard, and you keep giving unsolicited advice and coaching. Eventually, it's an entire 2-week holiday, and then it's divorce, and then you're not with your children because you weren't paying attention. The universe is trying to bring something to your attention. You're missing a piece of the puzzle called relating to emotions differently to the way you relate to a business project. I'm just giving you one example, right? Of which there are thousands. So there's this escalating feedback, there's this observable escalating feedback principle, which is if you consistently ignore the signposts for you to gather a piece of awareness, the universe seems to increase the discomfort of the feedback. Financially, health, relationships. Like if you continue to ignore the advice, the suggestions of your bosses at work professionally, you consistently ignore the annual feedback, eventually you will not be promoted. Eventually you might be let go because you're not taking the feedback. Same with health.
You mentioned, this is really crucial. First of all, I'm loving that we're having this conversation, and I believe this is highly beneficial to the many tens of hundreds of thousands of people that are listening and leaning in as I am. The acronym for joy that we espouse on this show, joy, stands for Journey of You. That's what joy really is. And essentially, this is what we're discussing here. So you mentioned there are 7 principles. the escalating feedback loop, for want of a better term, we'll call it, is that which affects or afflicts everybody, I think, in the growth, awareness, maturation process, because almost by definition, it's very difficult, if not highly unlikely, for an 18-year-old to learn about the world except through, how should we call it, pushback. So for an 18-year-old, unless they're raised in a very unusual environment, and I've met some 18-year-olds who are absolutely quite mature at that age and more than capable. It's quite astounding. I wasn't. At 18-year-old, I barely knew how to wipe my nose, even though I could do it, but it looked like, but I wasn't capable. That's the one principle you mentioned. Let's look at another, because what I want to begin to understand is go back to the overarching question, which is so intriguing. What is the opportunity in the invitation to enter another person's life? I mean, how wondrous is it, just expressing those words, that you will let me into your life? I am humbled and honored. Now, what do I do to make sure that I maintain that humility and I honor that?
Well, I think it's first important to recognize that a large number of people do not relate to entering someone's life with reverence. They enter into it with, what can you do for me? And how are you not going to trigger my fears? And how am I going to make you behave the way I want you to behave so you don't trigger my fears? And this is about me. And now we have a deal. And I'm the judge, jury, and executioner of your behavior. I'm so glad I've entered your life and now we're in a relationship. This is so great for me.
That's not the person you want entering into your life. It's not, that's not the King Arthur's court going out to save the ladies in distress.
No. So for the kind, well-meaning, benevolent people, if you're listening, if you recognize yourself as someone that wakes up in the morning and wants to do right by everybody you meet, then welcome to my world and Barry's world, and you're in the right place. So, well, first of all, understanding the game of life itself is tremendously empowering, because all it really means when you understand it is, like I sort of say it like this, I have this little piece of software running in the background of my life, a little bit like a virus software. And all it's doing is in the background scanning for feedback. It's like, oh, some feedback over there. Look for the awareness. So when I have difficulties or breakdowns or struggles, I ask myself intelligent questions like, what am I missing? What's the silver lining? What's the awareness? What flawed belief do I have around this? How did I contribute to this? So the game of life itself instantly gives you a solution-focused mentality and a personal responsibility mentality. I'm willing to reflect and introspect and ask myself, how did I contribute? Because I may not have done, right? I may not have done. You know, sometimes the only sin is I just wasn't prepared enough for somebody like that. Fortunately, now at my age, I'm surrounded by wonderful human beings, socially, my family, and professionally. So I don't have to deal with unpleasant people anymore, which is helpful. I think that's a function of living your life like this, like consciously. So when you enter someone's life and you understand that you're having your own game of life that's unique and bespoke and personal to you, based on your family, your childhood, your life experiences, and, which hopefully we'll get to later, your own archetypal nature, which is a critical piece of the puzzle, which is what I've been spending the last 17 years working on. When you enter someone's life and you understand this, you also understand that this person that you might be falling in love with or wanting to be in a relationship with, they are also in the middle of their personal, unique game of life journey. And the way it was explained to me once before, not to get too woo-woo, is that it's possible that our soul is made up of the same stuff as whatever word you want to give to the divine intelligence that runs the whole show. It's made of the same stuff, and they're in collaboration. And the game they're playing is to bring about the greatest version of you that's available and possible in this lifetime. Not like some kind of burden. It's just the agenda, which is the same agenda as the game of life itself. to bring about the greatest version of you available in this lifetime. Not you in comparison to somebody unbelievably extraordinary, whoever you think that might be, right? Pick someone in your life that you think is beyond extraordinary. Okay, you don't have to compare yourself with them. When you enter somebody's life and you understand that both of you as individuals are on your own life journey of maturation, and you can enter someone's life with that commitment too, to hold the space for this remarkable human being's journey. They're going to have good days, good chapters, bad chapters. They're going to let themselves down. They're not going to meet their commitments. Sometimes they're going to exceed their commitments. And you can actually become a mate of their soul, because you can actually relate to them the way your soul would like to relate to their soul, which is, this is a game of maturation. And the opportunity of relationship, the profundity and reverence by which you can enter someone's life, is to hold the space for that journey with as little judgment as possible. And then you join forces with the prime directive of life itself. And you actually begin to have a relationship. And you get the astonishing privilege of witnessing somebody mature and grow and become their best version of themselves. It moves me to tears. If I keep talking about it, I'll get emotional because it's so glorious and so stunning. And unfortunately, so many people miss out on this because they're wrapped up in their minds inside this sort of external world materialistic deal. I'm giving you children, you're going to do me this.
I want to put you on pause. I want to put you on pause because you just, as we say in the old literature, you touched me to the quick. If I let you continue, you would be moved to tears, as I am at the moment, because of how reverentially you are describing and speaking about the beautiful, kind, giving, concerned beings that one wants to not only surround oneself with, but be. In other words, when one is concerned with being kind, considerate, caring, then you attract, more often than not, people like that. Obviously, there situations happen. Filters are there, as you said, the scanning in the background to make sure that it really does. I'd like to talk about the word that you use, which is quite unusual today, and I'd like you to discuss it, what you call the archetypal relationship. In other words, archetypal is, it's a great word from the 19th century. Describe what you mean by an archetypal relationship, if you would.
With absolute pleasure. So the word archetypal is the only technical word I use in my entire teaching, because I'm not an academic, which, as many people from academia have said, is one of my highest qualities, because I've not been indoctrinated by any pre-existing frameworks and maps of psychology, etc. So the simple word archetypes equals operating system. I'll say it like this. Over the last 1,000,000+ years, whatever the evolution of the species, that the human psyche has evolved to ensure the survival of the species. The human psyche has evolved with 4 fundamental aspects. And they're like 4 operating systems. The most famous words to describe these operating systems are sovereign, warrior, magician, lover. So what are these 4 realms? The sovereign realm, so when I use this terminology, I'm talking about it in its mature fullness. There is an immature, imbalanced aspect of this archetypal nature. So the sovereign realm is the realm that is concerned with the external world and the near future. I missed a point. We're all born with a strong leaning in one direction. So there are maybe 4 that are within us, but one of them is lit up, fully lit up, and it's the way we see the world. And the operating system that we're born with, it shapes everything about our life. So let's see if your listeners recognize themselves in any of the 4. The correct question is, which of the four do you recognize yourself? So the sovereign realm is interested in the future, the external world, workability, planning. In the old days, it was making sure there was enough grain in the barn to feed the village come winter. Planning, details. They like being on time. They don't like vagueness. They like precision. They like detail. And they worry about things coming down the path. They realize that if it isn't organization and structure, the world will go to pieces and the family will go feral and people won't get fed. So the human psyche has evolved over the millennia to ensure that some people in the community want to focus on this naturally. It's a natural inclination to make sure there's workability. The systems work, right? Let's go with the warrior next. Also in the external world, the warrior is more interested in the integrity of people rather than systems. If you relate to yourself as a warrior type, you like to be on a mission. You're constantly alert to keeping people safe. You would have no problem putting yourself in harm's way to protect the innocent. You know that evil and darkness is around every corner and you can't relax because you have to be switched on. Over the millennia, this energy was protecting the innocent people in the village, standing at the gate and the boundaries, dealing with bears and snakes and Vikings and marauding gangs of malevolent actors. The human psyche designed and evolved with this piece of our archetypal operating system nature, because some people have to pay attention to who's a wrong un. Are you a good faith actor or a bad faith actor? Are you coming into the village or am I going to keep you out of the village? Because somebody has to do that. And they've been doing this for 1,000,000 years. The third one, the magician realm, is now the first of the internal operating systems. The magician realm likes humor, play, ideas, creativity, color. They want wonder. Their commitment is wonder. The warriors want to win. They want winning. They want to win and keep safety. The sovereign realm wants to be organized and workability. The magician realm wants creativity and wonder, because without wonder and color and architecture and music and words and theater, it's wonder. There is an aspect of the human psyche that can finish work, close down your work emails, update your to-do list, your project plan, close that down, go home, change your clothes, hug your partner, go out to the local music place or pub and have a libation and enjoy music. And maybe there's lasers and smoke and a great musician, and get sent into an internal world of wonder. And that makes life worth living, whether it's a music festival or an art show or a photography exhibition or walking over a Tower Bridge in London and just being stunned by, and they like new, they like change. Van life is for the magician folk. A brand new day every day, a new view. The sovereigns don't like change, they like consistency. The magician realm likes change. And then finally, we have the lover realm, which is also internal world, but they care about emotions and connection and interconnectivity. And they don't like conflict. They don't like anger. They want everybody to be happy and everybody to be safe, because these are the people that have been historically in the center of the village, where the food is, where the fireplace is, where the children, the babies are, where it's supposed to be sweet and innocent and safe, where the darkness is kept at the boundaries of the village. This is where the innocent are. So we need people, male and female, as it turns out, to be naturally interested in all of the interconnectivity. When somebody walks into a home, for example, and the child in the high chair is just beginning to turn their food into a toy, and the elder child is getting frustrated with the homework, and whoever's preparing the food looks exhausted and frazzled, and that person walks into that room and says, well, I'm going to do the garbage because that's my job. It's like, hold on now, it is your job, but if you just check in with the group. So the lover realm and the sovereign realm are both group interested primarily, self-interested, sometimes never. So
let me put you on pause here just for one moment. We're going to take a brief break because this is mesmerizing. And I want everybody to just lean in and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. You want to hear from our sponsors. These are great people. There's more Rory coming because he's building a roaring fire of passion and love. We'll be right back after this brief message. Don't go away. Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Remember, you're good-looking because you're always looking for and finding good. Have we found good? Oh, my gosh. We have Rory, who is bringing us through into the 4 archetypes of the human condition: the sovereign, the warrior, the magician, the lover. And I was just putting him on pause when he was discussing the inner and outer aspects of each one. However, I want to jump to something for now because it's something that's been gnawing at me, and I want to have an insight from you. When you talk about maturation, I'm going to call it eldership. Eldership. Where does eldership come into the play of the 4 archetypes and the maturation process?
Barry, you're going to you're a smart man. You're going straight to the gold, aren't you?
Yes.
I don't want to move away from your question, but I want to say one thing first, just to finish what I was saying for everybody listening. Just understanding these 4 operating systems is a brand new idea for many people. But here's the thing, let's go one step further and, hold on to your seats, everybody. It's highly observable that the vast majority of people, more than likely you, the person listening to this recording right now, you did not marry somebody with the same archetypal nature as you. There's a very, very high chance you're in a long-term committed relationship with somebody that does not see the world the way you see the world. These 4 operating systems have completely different values, completely different ways of arguing, completely different ways of feeling and being reassured. They have a different relationship to money. They have a completely different relationship to time, to anger, to commitment. Everything is different, but we all look the same. It's worse than that. Our archetypal nature, our operating system is deeper than our DNA. How do we know this? Because we've studied multiple birth children, twins and triplets and quads, identical triplets and quads. They have the same DNA, same everything's the same, but they're not the same archetypally. We are born with an archetypal nature that is deeper than our DNA. And what that means is, first of all, we have no idea that there's different operating systems until somebody tells us. In a similar way, on your iPhone, you don't know the only reason you know there's an operating system is because someone told you. You can't see it. You can't find it. If you take it apart, you can't find it. It's not there. You have to be told it's there. So we project our deep, deep, deep operating system, archetypal nature, and values out onto the world. I'll give you a really simple example. If you're from the lover realm, you're a gentle person, you don't like conflict. Pretty much everybody thinks anger is bad. These lovers, I call them sheep, right? That's the imbalanced, immature realm, it's the sheep. They marry wolves, which is the imbalanced, immature nature of the warrior realm, all the time, Barry. Sheep marry wolves all the time. Wolves like anger. They think anger is important because it expresses importance and it's clear and precise and it gets things moving, it gets things done. Totally different value systems. And then people get married, they get together, the biochemicals of falling in love wear off, and then they have to struggle through, often decades, of baffling confusion that their partner is not behaving in a way that's consistent with their deepest, deepest sense about what is right and wrong.
I'm going to ask a question. So I can understand why a wolf would marry a sheep. it's assertion, it's the sovereign, protection even, and expressing anger. A sheep would marry a wolf because the sheep perceives the wolf as a protector. In other words, why?
Yes, and deep down, wolves want to protect. That's their job. They want to do it all day long, all day, every day until they die. They want to keep people safe, watch out for people, and they like to protect the innocent, at least the benevolent ones. So I only work with kind, well-meaning, benevolent people.
There's been so the wolf. Let's not think of the wolf as the big bad wolf. Let's think of the wolf oftentimes, or in this particular case, as the benevolent, kind wolf, in the sense that yes, using the archetypal nature of the wolf to be beneficent.
Yes, absolutely. So I only work with kind, well-meaning, benevolent people. I don't work with unpleasant people. They're not interested in what I do because it's too real and too authentic.
I was going to say, it's not attractive to them.
No. So I empower the good folk. So you have lots of very benevolent, well-meaning wolves who deal with gentle folk, the sheep, and they don't know how to deal with them. And they often end up upsetting them. And they have absolutely no idea that they've upset them because sheep don't tell people when you've upset them. They do passive aggressive type behaviors. I want to just say one quick thing. You know you're a sheep if you're listening, if you have imaginary role play conversations in your mind for a few hours every day or every week. The coulda, woulda, shoulda conversation where you imagine what you would have said when you had a breakdown with somebody. Now, all the sheep listening recognize what I just said. Barry, you have no idea.
You're right. I have no idea.
All the sheep are nodding right now listening because I just told them that they have imaginary role play conversations because they're afraid of conflict. So they don't speak up. So they internalize these conversations often for hours every week, hours. The work I do makes that stop. But let me move on because I'm aware of time.
Yes, we have only a couple minutes. I'm sorry.
I'm blowing your mind. I'm sorry. I'm on a roll
it's
now.
wondrous. I love it.
The immature, imbalanced nature of the sovereign realm, I call the gorilla, because they have to be in charge and they lose their sense of humor and you don't mess with them. Gorillas marry foxes. Fox is the immature, imbalanced nature of the magician. The cunning, slippery, clever with words, very entertaining fox. Gorillas and foxes marry all the time. Because wolves want to protect the innocent. They find somebody that's innocent and this bond happens. And sheep want to be protected, and this, tall, dark, and handsome type idea, forget gender though, and they marry all the time. Gorillas like to organize things, and they fall in love with people that need organizing because they're bloody useless. See, foxes don't check their bank statement. They live in the moment. They live in the now because that's where the wow is. So foxes live in the moment, in the internal world. Gorillas live in the future, and that they want to be organized. So they sort of, I get to express my gift with this person, you see, that's the thing. And the foxes are like, oh my goodness, you need color and creativity and wonder and adventure and comedy. I can bring all of that. In relationship, it's all unconscious. In relationship with you, I can bring you all of my gifts that you don't have. This is why opposites attract, archetypally. But with this comes immense struggle, immense confusion, immense suffering. And the work I do explains all of this. And what happens is massive 90+% reductions in confusion, suffering, struggle, fighting. That's what we do. To answer your question.
I want to put you on pause.
Okay.
You just heard something of import and note for your life. That's what we do. Rory's work reduces the tension, creates opportunity, opens up the pathway so that the different archetypes can not only live in harmony, but the wolf can lie down with the sheep.
Yeah.
In harmony.
Well, let me tell you exactly what we do to answer your previous question. I appreciate letting me go on a side. How does eldership come into this? Let me tell you what archetypal wisdom does. So I'm an advocate for archetypal wisdom. I think archetypal wisdom is a body of knowledge that is absolutely mandatory to inquire into in your life. And the almost entire feedback from my participants on my programs is, I wish I'd known this sooner. It's that important. So the first thing that archetypal wisdom does is it reveals the map. It reveals the playing field. It explains what the heck is going on with your children, with your bosses, with your colleagues, with your spouse, why people are the way they are. Because the number one source of suffering by volume is absolutely confusion. It's absolutely misinterpreting people's behavior wrongly. Archetypal wisdom reveals all of that. It then reveals the dysfunction of your life. Your survival, immature, imbalanced nature, whether you're a sheep, a gorilla, a wolf, or a fox, it contains your attributes, but it also contains your Achilles heel. It contains, and archetypal wisdom reveals how you let yourself down, how you have, most people have noticed they have a recurring experience in their life that gnaws at them. They can't quite put their finger on what it is, and they're trying their best, but they feel, maybe not in words, that they're missing a piece of the puzzle. Archetypal wisdom reveals the dysfunction of your life. It then goes on, and here's the answer to your question, and it reveals how you overcome that. It gives you the solution. It's the gold on the treasure map, if you will. And ultimately, it then reveals, how do you move from immature, imbalanced sheep, afraid of conflict, worried about everybody, imaginary role play conversations, to a mature lover? Because that step is almost impossible to figure out, and I'm not bragging. How does a wolf become a mature warrior? How does a fox stop being so blimmin' foxy
and become a magician?
And become a mature magician. And likewise, how does a gorilla become a mature sovereign? Archetypal wisdom reveals all of this. And then ultimately, it reveals the path of eldership, which really is what the game of life is attempting to bring about in all of us. We're not supposed to be immature, imbalanced, highly reactive, easily triggered people later in life. We're supposed to have figured it out. And it's very, very hard work for decades. But archetypal wisdom and the game of life itself is this perfect combination of information that makes sense. And I know we're running out of time, but the results that people experience inquiring into this information with me and my team is beyond their wildest imagination. It constantly blows my mind. People restoring their family units, living in separate homes, people transforming their marriages, people stop fighting overnight because they understand every fight they've ever had is the same fight, different day. So I'm an advocate for archetypal wisdom.
Okay,
I'm imploring.
let's do the following.
people.
Let's do the following. Urge everybody, share this with 5 people. Notice I didn't say 50 or 100. Send out to everybody on your list. Share it with 5 people. That way we'll touch 1.5 million people around the world. Everything you want to know about this and Rory, go to my website, www.whatawonderfulworld.barryshore.com. It's all there. You must become more familiar with Rory and what he's teaching us. Now, I have 3 quick questions for you, wonderful Rory. Number 1 question, will you come back again?
I'd be honored to. I'd love to. Thank you. Yes.
Number 2, you have only 80 seconds to answer this question.
Okay.
What is your most fervent desire?
My most fervent desire is that the full profundity and potential of archetypal wisdom is made clear for a generation. That it becomes a household conversation. That people become capable of understanding themselves and their loved ones in a way that, look, the majority of abuse and suffering experienced in kind, well-meaning families is resolved by this information. The kind, well-meaning people that cry at the end of the day because they had a breakdown with one of their children and they don't understand why, and they don't want that, and they can't explain it. All of that is resolved in this work and more. It's so moving, it's so staggering. I can hardly put it into words, Barry.
So this is the most fervent desire. It's all resolved in this work, the archetypal wisdom. And number 3, may I give you a hug in front of 368,229 people around the world?
Go on then.
Okay, here. Now, hug stands for heartfelt, unlimited giving. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
You got it.
And you're listening to The Joy of Living with your humble host, Barry Shore, and our amazing guest, Rory Kilmartin. Archetypal wisdom available to you. And you tuned in for one reason only, because you care the most in the entire world about you. And that's great. It's not about Rory. It's not about Barry. It's about you. You becoming the best you possible. When that happens, you build more bridges of harmony, create more joy, happiness, peace, and love in the world. You work with the 3 fundamentals of life, which are, number 1, life has purpose, like Rory is telling us. And when you lead a purpose-driven life, number 2 happens. You go mad. Mad means you make a difference in this world because you found your maturation. You've come who you are. And 3rd is to uncover the power and the secrets of everyday words and terms like www, what a wonderful world. Smile, seeing miracles in life every day. As my 8-year-old niece says, seeing miracles in everyday life. And when you use these fundamentals and these processes, you become happier, healthier, and wealthy. Who doesn't want that? You create the kind of world you want to live in, causing rethinking, archetypal wisdom, rethinking, enabling all to excel. And you know how to shift, and you keep the F in shift so the other stuff doesn't happen. And you internalize 6 most important words you'll ever learn. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. Use 4-letter words in your life. Love, life, hope, free, grow, play, pray, swim, and tell the world to F you. Capital N, capital S. After the show, you see your family and friends. You have a smile on your face. You have a twinkle in your eye. You point your fingers, say, F you, everybody. Add capital N, capital S. Say, what are you talking about? Say, where'd you get that? He said, I listened to Barry Shore and the Joy of Living podcast. He had this guy on Rory, and they're talking about awareness and maturation. And now you can open up the conversation. You get people's attention. Tell them to F you, capital N, capital N. And use, please, the 2 most powerful words in the English language 3 times a day, consciously and conscientiously, from now and the rest of your life. Good for you, your family, your friends, and all living beings. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. To harmonize and nurture kindness. So our blessing from Rory and Barry is go forth. Live exuberantly. Spread the seeds of joy, happiness, peace, and love. Go mad. Go make a difference. Rory, don't go away. Okay?
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Joy of Living podcast. Now that's another step towards your healthier, happier, and wealthier life. Never hesitate to do good in the world, no matter what the situation. Join us for another upbeat discussion next time at barryshore.com. And be sure to leave a rating and subscribe to the show to get more conversations like this. And remember to share it with your family and friends too. See you on the next episode.